Hi, my name's Harry. Welcome to another episode of Weld and Fabrication. Today we're going to be looking at the basic function of the spot welder, how to set it up, any little things you might want to be looking for in terms of some of the testing, how to get a successful or good quality spot weld. From a health and safety point of view, make sure you're wearing safety specs when you're using the spot welder. Not too noisy in terms of the amount of noise that's given off from it, but what I would say is that the heat from a spot welder, that's minimal, potentially you can still burn your fingers. So what I would say, the first thing you want to do is make sure from a maintenance point of view that the actual ends of the tips themselves are nice and clean. So these probes, make sure the probes are nice and clean. So just use a bit of emery cloth or an equivalency, could be a fine file, and just make sure you've got a nice clean face on that copper tip. Basically, if you get good conduction between the 2 points, you're going to get a cleaner spot weld. So it's much better to do that. Just spend a little bit of time to clean them up first. So the advantage of using a spot welder, I would say something like a compression rivet or a solid rivet, is most definitely the amount of time it's going to take. You haven't got to drill a hole through the material. You know, the time it takes to actually either go through doing a solid riveting with a hammer or using a pop rivet. So the amount of distortion, minimal amount of heat input in comparison to welding, and as long as you've got reasonably good access to both sides of the face of the material for a standard spot welder, it means that realistically you're going to get a good quality fix or hold on the piece of material. So what I want to do is I want to do a couple of tests. So I'm going to do a peel test and we're going to do a twist test. I'll just show you how to set the actual machine up, so to make sure that we don't get excess material wastage in terms of when you're actually clamping the face of the material down. So as you bring these down together, you can set the amount of preload, i.e. the amount of tension you're going to put down onto the two pieces of material by bringing the handle down like so. And we've got a dial on the top here, we can set the preload. And we can also set the number of cycles, so in terms of the current range that we can set, or the number of cycles we want it to go through, in this instance, for each spot weld we're going to make. So the amount of preload is quite important. If it's too tight, so you push the material too hard, or for instance, if your current is set too high, what will end up happening is you'll get a huge amount of sparks come off, and a lot of sparks indicates that potentially you're losing parent material, which in turn means that you're probably going to get quite a deep crater into the face of the material, and if you get a deep crater, that means the material thickness is going to be reduced, and therefore it's going to be weaker in terms of spot welding in comparison to one which fuses all the way through the face of the material. So two of the tests we can do, I say one of them is a twist test. So what we're going to do, put the safety specs on. I'm going to take two pieces of material, lay them over the top together like so, bring my spot welder down and spot weld them together. So we've got a nice clean spot weld, both sides, good penetration. It's not dished into the material too much, so we know we haven't lost too much material there. And what we're going to do is take these two pieces of material, if I can get them apart, he says. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to twist them across each other, and I can just, that's quite tough there. There we go, I'm getting them twisted apart, and you can see there, across those 2 points, there's quite a reasonable amount of penetration there between the two pieces of material, which is a good indication. Obviously the amount of effort I've took to actually tear them apart in the first place is a good indication as well. The other thing we can do, I said before, is what we call a peel test. So what we're going to do is take the two pieces of material, just offset them slightly so it's easy for me to bring them apart. Spot weld together like so. And the other thing I can do is get the two pieces of material, and then if I really bend them up like so, and that should hopefully, you can see there, that's pretty good. If they're not tearing apart, that's a good indication that we've got a good spot weld there as well. So I can bend it back and forth, and eventually, hopefully, no, it's not going to go yet. There you go, see, it's still only a slight twist test. We've got good penetration there. It's actually pulling right through the face of the material. Okay, so an advantage would be, I say, for instance, if we, and this is from our rolling video we did earlier on, we can see that our rolled cylinder, we've got our 10mm tab on the inside, so we've got our overlap on the material. So what it enables us to do is very quickly, you could use a set of mole grips to clamp it together. In this instance I haven't got a pair there, so what I'm going to do is hold it in position. But actually what you could do, if you hold it with a pair of mole grips, you've got a steady hand, it's okay. And we're just going to bring it down like so, on that 10mm marker. spot weld on one end, check it, we check the other end, and we can just bring it out if need be, which it needs to be. There we go, set that 10mm as well. Back on our line, and spot weld the other end. And then one in the middle. Well, I said to you before, just be aware that I can feel they're just a little bit warm. They're not too hot, but it is important not to touch them directly after spot welding, because potentially it could cause a burn, which will obviously in turn cause a blister. Okay, but this is a much quicker way of fusing, especially sheet material together. So it's good for thin gauge material, and it reduces the amount of time in terms of man hours, and in turn also helps with the quality of finish. So we've got no protrusions like we would do with a rivet. Nice flat profile to the material. Okay, thank you very much.